All right, so looking at some examples, I first want to bring us through the breakdown of easy ways to actually count these numbers. So of course we've got to review what they all mean. So a shell equals 0, a bar equals 5, and a dot equals 1. So if we look up here, there's a really simple way to actually count especially large numbers, but it also works for smaller numbers as well. So the one thing that you want to do is you just want to count in levels. So every single level you just take as its own separate section, if you will. So what you do is you start in the ones. So of course we're not multiplying it by anything, but what we do is we count it out. So we say 5, 10, 11. So what you want to do is you want to multiply that by what I had mentioned before over here. So the first level, we're not multiplying it by anything, or 1, just to keep it the same. So 11, which is what 5, 10, 11, times 1 equals 11. So what we want to do is we just want to put that number down and then move on to the next level, and we add them all up after. So moving on to here, so we're now in our 20 section. So what we do though is we just, because we're in a new level, we just count it as if it's ones. So this is of course 5. So we say 5 times 20, which is what we're doing in the second level, we're multiplying it by 20, equals 100. We write it down, we add it up later. Now moving on, so what happens when we see a shell? So the shell basically means that there's nothing in this level. So normally what we would want to do is we're finding out how many 400s are within this 400 level. So we count out the ones, but because there's nothing in here, we just say 0. So it's 0 times 400 equals 0. We add it up later. Moving on to our 8,000s. Again, we just count it out as if it's ones because we're in one separate section. So we say 1, 2, 2 times 8,000 because we're in the 8,000s level, or the fourth level, equals 16,000. We calculate all of these by just adding them up together. We get 16,111. That's how that system works. So I'm going to quickly show you, and of course I showed, and the way we were looking at, just like with our numbers, you just multiply each on and on and on. So here the next cell would be 160,000, 3.2 million, etc., etc., because it's 20 to the power 4 or 20 to the power 5. So that's just demonstrating that. Okay, so looking at some specific examples. So we're going to quickly look over 32 one more time just to break it down. So here we have, of course, 2 levels. The first level is our ones. So we're just multiplying whatever we see in this section by 1. So 5, 10, 11, 12. 12 times 1, because we're in our 1 section, equals 12. We add it up later. Next level, so we're moving up. So we're just multiplying whatever we see by 20. So 1 times 20 equals 20. Add the 2 up together, we get 32. All right, so let's look at a more complicated one. So 384. So what we're of course doing is we've got 2 levels. So they're broken up. So normally when you see the numbers written out, they're going to be so for instance, the ones will be very close to what's below it. So you'll be able to tell that they're part of that level. So see how there's a very notable space here? That's how you can actually tell apart the 2 levels. So we're first going to look at our ones level. Always start from the bottom to the top. So looking at our ones, so we're multiplying this level by 1. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times 1 equals 4. We add it up later. Now here, this is our 20s level. So we're multiplying it by 20. So looking at 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So all we have to do is we say 19 times 20, because we're in our 20 level, is 380. And then we can add them all up to be 384. So one thing I want to point out is this is a way to actually write the numbers out. So all you want to do is if it's under 400, you say, okay, what multiple of 20 is this number? So of course we can't, separate it into, we want to know which numbers fit in each level. So what I did is I just said, okay, of course 4 isn't going to work out. So I said, okay, 380 divided by 20, and then that was 19. So that's how I figured out to put that many in the ones level. So this will take a little bit of playing to kind of go backwards, but once you try it out and once you play with it, you'll be able to work with it a little bit more. So of course I had 4 ones left over and I put that in the ones level. If this number was over 400, then I would know I need to go up to a next level. If this number was over 8,000, I know I would need to go up to the next level. So let's look at another number over here. All right, so we've got 2,403. So of course, this is our ones level. So I'm just gonna write in times 1 right here. So we've got 1, 2, 3. 3 times 1 equals 3. Add it up later. So of course, this is our times 20 level. But I've got nothing in this level. So when I actually did the breakdown of this to create this number, I realized that there's nothing in this level. So you put a shell to represent that there's no 20s, if you will. So what you do is you times 0, because there's nothing there, because it's a 0, of course, if we remember our explanations over there. So we times 0 by 20 equals 0. So we add it up later. So just always remember, we're not multiplying the entire number by 0, which would of course equal 0. It's just that specific level. And then we're adding them up after. Okay, so moving on to our next level. This is now our 400s level. So we're multiplying it by 400. So what we do is we count it out. We say 5, 6. 6 times 400, and that equals 2,400. So you can right away see here kind of the breakdown of how I figured this number out just by randomly picking a number and then able to actually represent it here. So obviously this number is under 8,000, so we know we're only going to have 3 levels. So then we figure out what fits into each level. So you want as much as possible in your upper levels, and then you can kind of go from there. So the highest number to actually, or the 400 can fit, you know, the most amount of times, 6 times in this total number. So that's how we actually figure out how to break down that number. So again, you're basically just going backwards from what I'm breaking down here. So what we do, of course, we figured out what each level represents or how much is in each level. We add them up and we get our final number. All right, so this is just, again, a quick summary of how the Maya numbers worked. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email, but I will be linking a couple more detailed videos than what I'm talking about here. But of course, for our purposes, we always have to remember we're not going up too high in numbers because we are focusing mostly on ages especially. But this is a good way to actually understand how the numbers work from bottom to top, if you will. All right.